Welcome to part 2 of our EX2 homepage pick exercise that we've been working on. And we're going to put our picture over here, and hopefully we made our picture, or you made your picture in Pixlr already, so we have that picture ready to go. What we have to do is just edit our HTML and CSS just a little bit. So I'm going to go to brackets, and if you don't have your folder opened as a folder, you could do that. Remember, you just go File, Open Folder, like you did the first time. I think that's the way we did it the first time. And you're going to go find your upload with your last name, and that's the folder you're opening, so you see all the files in there. So you see homepage CSS, you see index.html, and as well as your images. And your images now have, in addition to the header picture that was in there, the one that I put in there, you also have your homepage pick. And you can actually, there it is. There's your homepage pick, there's the header, and I'm going to open index.html right now, and we're going to do a little HTML work in here. So we're going to do some edits in here. Remember, you had put your name in here. I'm still calling myself sample just for the sake of using a sample in here. Now we're going to put in an image. Now the way we put in an image, here's your header image. That's the one that has the CSC 230 header, and if you hover over the name, you'll see a little picture of the image, and you actually see the size as well. But one thing that we'll do when we put in an image, it uses an image source tag, img src equals, and then in quotes it puts the image, and it also puts where it's located. So if it's in a folder, you have to include that folder name before a /, so it knows that it's in the same directory except it's in a folder. So, and we'll learn to do that all through the semester. So it's going to be very similar to this. It's going to have an alt tag, which is basically text that would display in case your image wouldn't load for whatever reason. And also for accessibility reasons, for people who interpret that code as text, it'll say what's there on the page. It'll also show a width and height of your image, which is, it's not completely required, but it is recommended. So we'll do it just like this. And we could type this in. And one thing I noticed here, and I'll just finish this off, is that I don't have a closing p tag, which it seemed to work okay, but I'm going to close my p tag there. And remember, tags close up. A lot of our tags close up when they have closing tags with a / inside of it. So there's my starting p tag, ending p tag, starting h1 tag, closing h1 tag, starting header tag, closing h tag. Now some of them have closing tags. The image source does not have a closing tag. So that's one that does not have a closing tag. It'll just have it'll all be in one bracket. So we're going to put it after our h1. Actually, we'll do two things here. Well, let's do this. We're going to highlight, we could just highlight and copy this. We're going to highlight and copy this line that says EX4 lists. We didn't do that one yet. That was kind of like a placeholder, so we have to do that. But I'm going to copy that, and I'm just going to hit return and paste the same thing right on a line above it. So it'll say EX4, and I'll change that to be EX3. That's what we're working on right now. And instead of saying lists and links, which are that exercise will be, I'll just say, I'll just put see my pick. And I'll put a little arrow. I'll put dash and an arrow. That's it. It won't be linked or anything. Make sure I spell it right. So that way I just have a listing of EX3 and we know what it is. It doesn't have to be linked to anything. So we'll just put that in there in front of EX4. And your EX2, I think, was your quiz, your pretest or whatever, and EX1 was setting this up and uploading everything. So anyway, what we're going to do after H1, we're going to put an image SRC. And you could copy the one above, or you could just start typing and get the feel for brackets on how it works, because it'll help you out as you start typing. If you start with a less than sign and you just type IMG, it'll give you hints. So you could click on IMG. And then you could do S, and right away, even if I type S, it's bringing up SRC. And then it even put the equals, and then it's even giving me choices of what to put in there. And I'm going to go into my images, because it's going to put the image name in the quotes. So I'll go into images, I'll find, there's the one I want, the rich HP pick. I'll put that in there, and that's done. So I didn't have to type most of that stuff. It kind of found it for me. And then I'm going to do an alt tag. And you could even well, I guess we'll have to click on it. I was thinking I could use the down arrow, but I'll click on it and it puts the quote there, and then I can put my alt tag, and I'm just going to put homepage pick, just so people know what it is if it doesn't load, or if there's an X there, or just for whatever reason. So I'll just put homepage pick, and then the last thing I'll put width, and I'll put equals, and I'll put quotes, and it should put both quotes, and I just have to put that in there. Matter of fact, I'll type height, and then I'll put them in, and I'll put equals and then the quotes. Now if you're wondering, well, I don't know what the widths and heights are. Now you might remember from working on it, but if you just hover over here, it says 100 by 124. So I'll just put in 100 for my width and 124 for my height. And I'm missing something here. There's something I still need to do with my image source. It's not coming up as an error. Well, actually it is. Notice that this is showing up in red. If you see things in red, it means you're missing something. You didn't either close something properly, or there's some error somewhere when you see things in red. And actually, if you look, I didn't close my tag. My image source tag needs to be closed, so I need to close that off, and then these go back to being black again. So that's my image right there, and that's all I really need. And if you want to preview it, you could use this lightning bolt, and I could even save. I'll do a Command S and save it, or a Control S if you're on Windows, and I'll just see what I have so far and see if the image is at least showing up. So I'll click on this, and on the Mac it opens up like a separate Chrome browser, and it's putting my picture right here, which is okay. It looks fine. That's the right size, except I don't want it there. It's very distracting. It creates this big gap of white space. I actually want it over here. I want it on this side of the page, so I want to move that, and we can't just like hit the space bar and move it over. It's not like a layout program. We're working with HTML, and what we're going to do is we're going to identify that image and use CSS to move it over. So even if you just begin with HTML, it'll be good to learn some CSS. We already have CSS in our homepage, so you could learn some things. I have a lot of comments in there explaining what the CSS does, and we'll just try out a little CSS here. So we'll go back to brackets. We can just jump right to our CSS file. And also, one thing I want to point out is that what I want to do is I want to identify the image. And the image, now there's two images on our page. One image is in the header section. The other image is in this section HP. So what I want to do is I want to identify only the image in section HP, not the header up here. So I don't want to make a style for every image on the page, only the image that's inside of section HP. And this is basically a section on our page. We'll talk more about HTML, but it has an ID name. It's just a special kind of more specific name for a section called HP. It's our homepage section. So I'm going to go into my CSS, my homepage CSS, and click on that file. You could double click if you want to open it up, but until you do something, it's not going to be saved yet. So I put in all these comments. If you look at our CSS, there's all these comments here that have a slash asterisk, and then there's a sentence, and then an asterisk slash again. Those are comments that are there that you could put in for notes. I put them in for you so you could understand what some of this stuff does. And this isn't a lot, but one thing I am going to do before we get into CSS a whole lot, there's this part here called section, and it has a number sign HP. That's the ID name. That's section ID HP. And you could have just put ID HP. You could have just put the number sign or the pound sign HP, but this is kind of the full name. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this. You could do this, and we'll just do a little CSS, and I'll paste that. And I'm not going to need this style, but one thing to point out is that all our styles are basically going to have an element or a selector. This one is selecting the section ID HP. Some of these are selecting HTML tags like H1 and paragraphs and unordered lists and all those kind of things. So there's a selector, and then there's basically properties. They could be anything. They could be width, they could be font family, they could be color, they could be background color. This one happens to be padding, and then there's a colon, and then there's a value. So it could be width and something else. Now it's a little different. Things in here will be a little different than HTML. So just want to point that out. Even the comments are different. Even in here we have to put px for pixels, where in HTML we don't. When we put the width and height of our image, we didn't put pixel in there. We're at about 9.5 minutes, so why don't we take a break here and we'll continue with the CSS in the next video.